and welcome again. So we have been talking and we have been on mute. So this has been a wonderful experience. So again, this is Erica Bishop, who is here from Evolve and Elevate with Erica. Thank you so much for being here with us. And we have these little mishaps that happen. So as you're coming in, please tag, please share, please like, please subscribe. So tonight we're going to be talking about embracing change and overcoming fear and how to embrace those new opportunities. So for the next few minutes, I'm going to give my wonderful daughter here, Rebecca, who's joining me tonight, an opportunity to share with you all a little bit about her background before we go into our topic tonight. Rebecca, I turn it over to you.
Okay, hi again, everyone. My name is Rebecca Bishop. I am the lovely daughter. This here is my mom. And she invited me on today to just join her in the conversation. We did have a wonderful conversation earlier today that really sparked the collaboration that's happening right now. So, just to give a little background on me, my name, again, is Rebecca. I am a final year senior at Claflin University this year coming up. It's almost time for me to, wrap up my college years. So I'm a digital design major within the art department. I love what I study and what I do. In my free time, I also do graphics as well. I have a business called Redesigned by Rebecca that I like to indulge in from time to time just to help others bring their ideas and their digital platforms to life. A little bit more about my background. I am involved on campus, but aside of that, I just love being, involved in my community as well, whether it's through my sorority or being involved in at church. And I also have had a couple of moments of like growth in order for me to get where I am now. I transferred from Winthrop University, took some time off, also studied at a 2-year community college, Midlands Technical College in Columbia. And I am now where I am now. So when we talk about overcoming fear, embracing change, I have had my fair share of doing those things. And, throughout all those lessons, I've been able to come out to where I am now, and now in a place where I am, just growing and trusting myself and allowing myself to just grow through all the change that is happening. So
thank you so much for that. So we're going to start talking about fear. So oftentimes we've heard the acronym of fear being false evidence appearing real. So a couple of years ago, as a matter of fact, it was last year, and just talking about the topic on fear, one of the things that I had also discovered that sometimes it's false emotions appearing real, right? So we understand that fear oftentimes causes us to be stuck.
Yes.
It causes us to find ourselves in a place where we procrastinate. It causes us to second guess what God has already told us to do and has given us the green light to move forward. So when we think about fear and some of the situations where you have had some places of fear, kind of walk us through that journey when you realized what it was and what it took for you to break through to that place to come out of it.
Yeah, me being a young person, I often feel like and even though they have shared like experiences and they're very similar, we often like mistake fear for anxiety, and that's like an overall like umbrella term that a lot of people my age use. Somewhat it's like a crutch in some moments to kind of keep us from reaching our fullest potential when it comes to taking on new opportunities or taking on change or really just embracing change. But in my opinion, from experiences that I've had, I try to just turn it and first acknowledge and accept the fear that's happening, because acknowledgement is the first step to anything, especially when it comes to growth. So just saying like, okay, I'm feeling these things. I'm feeling emotion. Like you said, sometimes it's false emotions are feeling appearing real, and in a lot of situations, you just have to really take advantage of those emotions and like really just turn it around the best you can. A lot of times we're often in a space where we let our emotions literally take over. And I remember it was one time Eric, my brother, gave me a nice word of advice, and he was like, get over the fear of like, or the feeling of feeling overwhelmed. Sometimes that can take over so much to where that literally like stops us from approaching new situations. But really what it takes is just taking a pause, and sometimes even thinking back on times where you felt this fear or felt this overwhelm before, just to be like, hey, I've done this before, I've overcome a lot in my life, just to give you that like positive self-talk so you can like boost yourself up and gain confidence to be able to overtake whatever is coming next or whatever is right in front of you. A lot of the times we do think back on past situations, especially when it's situations that we failed or not doing so great in, or our confidence has suffered and we get discouraged. But the thing about fear is that it's also an opportunity as well. So if you just take the opportunity to trust yourself and to build that trust, because as you continue to overcome your fear and overcome new things, you know, gain a sense of trust within yourself that, okay, I'm confident, I'm strong, I'm resilient. And understanding how strong and how confident and how much you've done and how resilient that you are can really just help you, like, you know, pivot through the next point. So.
That's powerful. So I want to ask you another question. When you think about the times you had to lean in, and as you took Eric's advice to kind of get past the feeling of the fear, what was it like for the mental fortitude that you had to acquire? Because you know your brain tells you one thing, your emotions are screaming. You do have those thoughts in your mind. When we start picking up some of the old thoughts and emotions from past experiences, knowing and understanding that this is a new experience and it can turn out completely different. But by nature, we find ourselves thinking of old things, right? So how and what did you do to change your mindset? When you think about your mindset, what kind of things did you have to say to yourself? And what are some of the actions that you took, either be it something physically that you did, how did you plan to move forward and to lean into something that was new and that was different?
So I know we pretty much hear this a lot. I'm not sure if people have heard this before, but sometimes you have to remind yourself of what your why was. Usually when we're embarking on new things in our life, that's something that we're putting ourselves in the position of, whether it's going out to get a new apartment, whether it's, you know, going out to college, picking a new career, or just like a little side hustle, a hobby, whatever it is. These are some things that we normally choose. So just understanding and remembering like why you got into it in the first place, because there had to be a spark of insight or confidence to kind of get you to that place to say, okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna bite the bullet. I'm gonna buy the course. I'm gonna, you know, save the money to go ahead and do this. So just remind yourself of why you were there in the first place, because our mind is very powerful, and just how doubt and everything can come up. Also, inspiration and confidence and stuff can come up as well. So really just playing into those positive thoughts, and to really reach outside of yourself and your mind. A good way that I use is to just pray. Like literally the Bible says, pray about everything, worry about nothing. God does not want us to worry about anything. And if you truly have faith, you'll understand that worrying is depositing into that doubt. It's depositing into a state of unfaithfulness. Like you're not showing that you're fully trusting God to carry you through it. So really just praying. And for me, my mind does get overloaded a lot. So aside from doing those two things of remembering my why and praying, I also like to like mark out my steps. I'm the type of person, like when I go to like face something, sometimes I'm looking at this like huge mountain and it's just like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? I just see this rigid path in front of me. Like, how am I going to overcome it? But just writing things down and saying like, this is step one, this is step two, writing down realistic short-term or long-term goals, even writing out your dreams. And then when you see that big picture, being able to break it down after that is very helpful. I know when it came to, like, for an example, me going to my new school, which is Claflin, when I first embarked on that journey, I was like, okay, here we go again. I'm going, you know, to a new university, transferring, and that whole transition in itself can be a lot. So I just took it one step at a time. I said, okay, I know I need to get my housing. So I just went ahead and picked a room. I said, sometimes the details doesn't matter. You just have to do it. Right. So I was just like, whoever I end up staying with, it is what it is. I'm, just trusting in God that He'll place me with someone that I'm meant to be in a room with. and I knew the next step was me, figuring out my classes. So do what's necessary, do what's required, and do what you're capable of. But also the last point that I want to say is like, don't be afraid to connect with people who have experience and to seek help, because in a lot of times when we're in an unfamiliar space, that helps a whole lot. Is to have someone by your side to say, hey, I've done this before. Like, first of all, it's not that big of a deal, and then second of all, this is how you can make it to that place. So you see someone who's made it out or made it to your goal or the next step that you have in mind for yourself. So really just remembering those 4 things, remembering your why, praying about it, marking your steps out, and then connecting with people who've done it before is very helpful.
Awesome. That was so powerful. So you all, we thank you so much for joining us. And as you're coming in, we ask that you do have any questions, definitely put that in the comments, or just let us know that you're here. But we're talking about embracing change and overcoming fear. And Rebecca was just sharing with me, and this is my daughter. She was just sharing with me about how the mental fortitude that she had to have and some of the different changes that she had and that she went through in reference to that. One of the things that I wanted to ask you also is, as someone, because you started your business when you were 20, 21?
Yeah, I think it was around 21. Definitely 21. Around like COVID time. It was
during COVID. So she embraced something new to start a graphic design business and a branding business. So she's definitely been a blessing to me because, being a mom, not really into technology like that. Thank God for my children because they helped me to embrace a lot of those different things. So how was it as you started your own business and taking on your first client and even going through that space of learning something new, because you took on a lot of new tasks and adventures and a lot of the different things that you had to move forward through. So how did that work out for you when you did that?
So starting out, I was just really like a happy bunny with all of it. Like, I just really wanted to just jump in and try something new, honestly. Like, and I'm glad that I did it because it ended up, moving me into art, which is what I'm studying now at school. But really what it was, I took the excitement and just ran with it. I knew I had to eventually sit down and put like a business plan behind it. But at least to start off, I definitely just like started to like look at new sources. So YouTube was a huge asset for me. TikTok at the time was growing. That was a huge asset. And then Instagram, because I was able to find all these other people who had business, like I said, connecting yourself with people who've done it before. So with me, like when it came to me working with my first client, I just jumped straight in and I told her, I remember my first client was a branding and a web client. So I did I refreshed her branding for her esthetician business, and then I did like a website for her. And at first I was like, oh yeah, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And finally, when we started getting to each individual task, I was just like, okay, this is way more than I thought it was. Like, Photoshop was something I was learning for real at the first time. And of course, like being self-taught, which I'm glad I did it that way. I was actually having to like, you know how you start off at a running pace and then like you kind of reach that hurdle and you're like, now we have to learn how to jump over it. So that was like, good. It was like a lesson within the trials.
Okay,
so
that's good.
It was a lot of just slowing down, really just like taking in, like I have to like really put time into learning a skill. But I love the fact that I was doing it while I was working, while I was learning, like along the way. And I actually got very good feedback. So just really throwing yourself in there. Sometimes you have to say like, hey, I'm scared, but I'm also excited. I heard this like very good piece of advice from someone I used to go to school with. She said, do it scared, do it excited, do it anxious, do it sad, do it confident, do it in every emotion that you feel, because at the end of the day, you stopping is you like suppressing yourself from reaching your goal. So whatever you're feeling, like just try to work past that and just do it, because at some point you're going to reach the end result. And the end result for us two being like designer and client was like amazing. She got a great, rebrand off of it and an updated website. I also encouraged her to take pictures and stuff for her new website. So she was getting amazing tools out of this. And in return, I learned how to draft up contracts. I learned how to work Photoshop in a new way. I learned how to lay out things on the web design portal. So it was just very beneficial to us. But really, it just took me kind of like being okay with learning, because a lot of people want to be expert level, like at the beginning.
Right.
And I think when we see experts, sometimes we're like, okay, why am I not here? And like, why is it taking so long? But you have to be a student in everything. That's what, in everything, you have to just be in a posture, in a position where you're just always taking things in, always willing to learn. So even with me being this self-taught designer, people think they know it all. And of course, like with all these tools and stuff that will kind of help you along the way, I had to say, okay, at some point I'm going to have to sit down and learn the skills and the process behind it. So just, knowing that you're going to have to slow down at some point and really get into the detail of it. So it was really fun though.
That was powerful. It was something that you said that I had to write it down. You said you start off running the race and then you have to learn how to jump over the hurdles.
Yeah.
And if anyone, track is one of my favorite sports. Because I was on a track team in high school and so was she. You ran the 400 and the 200?
Oh, Lord. Yeah. They without... They made me. I did not like running that 400, but I did the 400. I also tried other things while I was there, but for the most part, that was like the main event. Yeah.
Right. So when we think about track in itself, one of the most powerful things that I learned about running the 200 is you don't exert all of your energy in the curve. You have to reserve some for the straightaway when you come out of the curve, because that's where it really gets you. So when you think about embracing, and sometimes we take all of our energy to start, and we don't necessarily think about what obstacles could come along the journey, which can also bring about fear sometimes and put us in a place where we stall, where we find ourselves, hey, cuz, we find ourselves kind of stalling out a little bit when we are hit the ground running, and then fear kind of sets in because I had a good start with it, but what about in the middle of the journey? So you said you took a pause, and even as you pushed yourself through it, you did a reset. You took a time to make sure that you button up all the other parts, and you learned the additional parts of your skills, and you made sure that as you were going through that, you just continue to complete the process, because sometimes we abandon the process.
Yes, we do.
Fear will cause you to abandon the process. And you have to also make sure that I don't stop myself in the middle of the journey, because there's so many wins on the other end. So with that journey that you went on, you had a repeat client. You had several other clients. And you have continued to grow your business to the point that you started another part of your business on campus while you were at Claflin. And now you're in a space where you're doing small businesses and churches to help those who need branding and graphics and all these different things, all because fear will cause you to stop along the way on your journey. And as you're continuing to go forward, then you miss all of these different opportunities. When we talk about opportunities that could come because we did not finish the leg of the race, right? We stopped in the middle of that. So that was very powerful. As you're going along the race, how do you learn how to jump over the hurdles as they are going forward? Now, you talked about the mindset. Now, in any time that we're on a journey, there are some calculated risks that we have to take along the way. There are some things that we may not understand how it's going to work out. And then sometimes it's a situation that we have to put some extra into some things without the immediate gratification. And I think sometimes that causes us to pull back and pause a little bit longer than what we need to, because we don't necessarily see the immediate gratification, and then we think, did I make a mistake?
Or is the journey worth it?
Correct. That's powerful. Is the journey worth it? So when you think about as you're transitioning into full adulthood, as my baby's growing up and leaving the nest, she's 24 now. So as you're transitioning into adulthood and knowing that after college and what you're seeking to do, what are you thinking about when you think about what city am I going to move to? Am I going to stay within the city? How are you doing that? And talk about also, when you were talking about your plans, this is something that I taught Rebecca, was mind mapping. So when she was trying to make some decisions about school and some of the other decisions about her business, we would just go in a room on a blank wall, and she would write down everything. She would do a complete brain dump, and we would put them on Post-it notes. And she still does this to this day. This is something I taught them. Yeah, this is something I taught them when she was in high school. And Eric does the same thing. We would do mind mapping, and we put our thoughts, each individual thought, we put it on a Post-it note. And all the Post-it notes, we just write everything that we could think of just for a complete brain dump. And then she would put them on the wall, and she would line them up according to categories. What were things were similar? And what we found out is sometimes our brain scatters, and it causes us to do a whole lot. They probably can't see it. I don't know if they can see that. But with the mind mapping, as you visually put everything out, sometimes you get to see it's not as big of a hurdle. Yep, that's her wall. It's not as big of a hurdle as you think it is. And when you visually get to see it, you can kind of track and trail your to-do list, and it breaks everything down, and you can put everything in categories and find out I can tackle more than one thing at a time. I can tackle more than one thing at a time with a task. And it helps to take a lot of the anxiety out of a situation. I do it myself. Anytime I have something going on, I write everything on Post-it notes, put it on the wall, and do a mind map. And it makes it so much easier. So when you think about your transition and the risk in the decisions that you're making, how are you feeling going into leaning into another place of transition in your life as you're finishing college, and now you're about to go into possibly living on your own in adulthood, and might not even be in the same city, because Eric has been in Minneapolis, going on 3 years now? Yep. Yes. He's been in Minneapolis going on 3 years now. So how are you transitioning in that place and embracing that change?
Well, really, this is like the main thing. Young people have to accept the fact that you have to work hard. You just gonna have to. You got to. And
say it again, please.
I'm not gonna lie. That was a lesson that I was just like, it don't come easy. Y'all serious? Like, I can't just do it on, just go to school and then get the grades. No, sometimes you literally have to go the extra mile, and you have to go ahead and set yourself apart. I also had someone, when I say connecting to people who've done it before, I ended up connecting with this wonderful student. Her name is Daia Fogel, and she's actually a SAR of mine. And she ended up having her own graphics business and getting internships and stuff. And I remember I met with her one of my first few months at Claflin, just getting insight to figure out like what was her path, like what did she do. And she was like, you really have to put yourself out there, and you really just have to like continue to push, like perfect your craft. And like you were saying, like it's okay to do like other things, because one thing I've noticed is that with indulging into other things and trying new avenues, that at some point the skills were going to branch together and connect, that will manifest later. So say for instance, if I wanted to get involved with the club over here or something like that at school, but I also wanted to pursue a major that wasn't really connected, the interpersonal and like communication skills, the people skills and stuff you might learn over here might connect with an internship that came from your major, and you end up just like flawlessly finessing it, and it ends up tying together. So really just working hard. That's one, putting yourself out there. So sometimes that takes like putting in the extra applications, showing up to the meetings, meeting and reaching out to people like, individually. I know a lot of people, especially young adults who are looking for jobs in the corporate field, they do get to know you and stuff like that through like LinkedIn. So there's so many things that you can do just to make sure that you're branching out and reaching out, because a lot of people just need to see like a hand that is reaching out, that is wanting the opportunity to be able to welcome you in. They do a lot of searching, but they only search and find the people who truly put themselves out there. Also, another point I would say is just trusting that it's going to be okay. One thing that I had to really do is just like really like strengthen my sense of faith when it comes to, of course, God, because he's the one that orchestrates it all. And really within like just my journey with my studies, like we say, like a lot of people want that instant gratification. That's the kind of like the lifestyle that we live in right now, is instant gratification. We see people get famous like overnight. We see people, build businesses, and what it seems like it was, it took nothing to get there. But sometimes when you sit down and you hear their story, they've actually been working on this for like 10 years.
Right. Correct.
Like one CEO that I look up to, she's the CEO of Topicals brand, and she actually talked about how she started the brand like 6 to 10 years ago, before it even got to mainstream. And it was like a different skincare business that got her to where she is too. She hadn't even met her team yet, at that point, but she was still kept her eye on the prize and kept going for it. So just being okay that it is going to take a journey. Like, even if you look at the people within your house, within the classroom that you work in, within the coworkers that you work alongside with, everyone had to take stepping stones to get where they are. So you're not going to be the CEO at like all the time. Like, you're not going to be the top person in that structure, or you're not going to be where you are all the time. But just as long as like me working and me continuing to put the grind in and have that grit is going to eventually let me be in a position where I can look back and I'm saying, oh wow, I wasn't there where I started. So just being able to continue to just pursue. Yeah, so those are really the main points that I had to like really just like put in my pocket, was just knowing like at some point you're just going to have to like keep on going and really just putting yourself out there, and like just knowing it's going to be okay, especially when we reach back and we talk about emotions and how fear can end up stopping you, overwhelm, anxiety, all these negative things. Just knowing that it's going to be okay at the end of the day. Like, and I'm big on words of affirmation. I'm big on advice. So you'll hear me quote a lot of things. But another thing that I heard was that if you do the possible, God will do the impossible. And
that's powerful.
Like, fill everything else in. So as long as you're doing what you're supposed to do, if you have a vision, like the Bible says, write it down, make it plain, and then follow it. You don't say that part, but we know we need to.
Right.
Faith without works is dead.
Right.
So if you're not following and doing what you're supposed to be doing, and really like putting your best foot forward, like how do you expect the result? You have to put the work in order for everything to fall into place.
That's powerful. Someone please put that in the chat. If you do the possible, God will do the impossible. Thank you, Lisa, for putting that in there.
Yes.
Hello, Miss Brown Robertson. It's been a long time, my dear. I see you doing great things. So if you do the possible, God will do the impossible. It was something else that spawned a thought when you were speaking about the lady with the skincare. There's evolution in your process and in your journey. So even as you're on your journey, you have to embrace the evolution. You have to embrace the transformation. You have to embrace the change. And that's a part of embracing the growth, right? As you are going through your journey, and as you're growing and you're expanding and you're evolving and you're elevating, that all in itself requires you to embrace all of that newness with that. Because this is why I'm starting now, but I don't know what it's going to look like 5 years from now, right? And when you think about all the different journeys that we have been on, as we become better versions of ourselves, that automatically requires a newness that we have to embrace. Now, Rebecca said something that I still hold on to, and don't be surprised if you see it. We're putting on here as intellectual property, but you will see it out. It's a quote that she uses: "Do better with your better." Explain that to the people, what you mean by do better with your better.
Yeah, so like my mom just said, like as you're going through your process, there's going to be a evolution and a sense of evolving that's happening there. So every time we reach a new mark, every time we gain more knowledge or more wisdom or even like more strategy, you're then equipping yourself with that said better. So the problems that you once faced aren't going to be your issues anymore, because you now know how to face them. So when you get to that next point where you're saying like, oh, I've been through this before, I've learned this, I know this process now, then you can, perfect that. And then each step that you're going on is going to get better and better. And just knowing that like, hey, like at some point I'm going to be like a master of this if I keep going. Like, people say 10,000 hours or whatever the amount is to like really master a skill. Like if you put that work in, you're going to gain the strategy, like the muscle memory, the the knowledge to be able to combat it. You're going to be able to face those things, and eventually that emotion is going to go down. Eventually that fear, because what was unfamiliar to you, you're going to walk alongside of it and be like, hey, like, you're a friend now. Like, this is something that I know is very common to me, and I'm very knowledgeable in it. So just being able to like continuously put yourself in spaces to where you're learning new things, and then at some point those new things will be learned. Right. So kind of just like flipping that and knowing. So that's really what the essence of like do better with your better is. It's like once you gain that better, then you're able to like really use it as a tool and like use it to like kind of like use it as a tool to like build your next stair to like where you need to go. So
right, that's powerful. One of the other things that I wanted to talk about is when we think about embracing change, I think a lot of times we forget that we can always make a new decision.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it took me a long time. I think it was maybe around about your age when I realized that, you know what, I can make a different decision. Even though I made one decision and things did not work out, or it required me to do something different, I have the power to make a different decision. And when we learn how to take our power back when it comes time for change, it removes some of the anxiety and the fear out of it, because we're in a little bit more, we're in a better place of control.
Yes. And you trust yourself more.
And you trust yourself more with that. And when we learn how to arise to the occasion and arise to the space where I'm going to make a different decision to bring about a different change and to take my power back and not just let life unfold what I want it to unfold, but I can actually make a decision to, by God's help and his wisdom, make a decision to do something different to change the course of things. Because sometimes I think we just let stuff ride out. Oh, I'm in this and I just got to ride it out to the end and see what's going to happen. No, you have an opportunity to make a decision and to do something that's different. One of the things that I had to learn, and I think this was even by T.D. Jakes who said this at one point. He said it takes courage to walk away from something, to decide that it no longer works for you. It takes courage to decide that something no longer works for you. And we're talking about change and embracing change, especially when we talk about careers. We have the power to make a different decision. And sometimes we'll be in a workplace that no longer serves us. Yes, we can do the job. We've been there for a long time. It's familiar. It's comfortable. But God is directing us to do something different. He said, I want you to go another course. And I want you to change and try something else as a part of your own personal evolution. And we'll find ourselves saying, no, God, I don't want to do that. That's too hard. I don't want to do that because I don't know what's going to happen. But when God gives you the green light, he's considered all those things in the decision that you're making. So when you think about the fact that one day, this is my baby, y'all. This is my last one. One day that you're going to move away from home, you're going to start your whole new life, possibly in a whole nother state. What does that feel like? And what does that look like from the standpoint of maintaining that resilience through another phase of transition? Because now you're transitioning out of college. Now you're going to be going into whatever you're going to do with your business, or possibly going into the workforce, and then learning a whole new environment. What does that look like, and what does that feel like, and how are you preparing yourself for those transitions?
Well, really, the first thing that pops up in my mind when answering that question is really taking that fear and deciding it to place it on those negative things that, cloud our life. So what that looks like for me is, except for, fear of this new journey, it's going to be, fear of failure. Like, I don't want to be in a place of where I'm, kind of giving up, or fear of stagnation, or fear of, not reaching my fullest potential. Like if you're going to be scared of anything, be scared of the things that can keep you down. Like, don't be scared of the things that can really like take you to the next level,
Mhm.
you know? So, and especially because moving out, being on your own is such like a precious time.
Mhm.
And a lot of people, especially my age, feel like it's like the make it or break it moment.
Mhm.
Of course, like still being flexible and adaptable and
Mhm.
realizing like you said, I can make a decision.
Mhm.
Every day we wake up, we have a decision to make when, and that could change like the direction of our lives, like our
Mhm.
cousin Lisa said. Like, so like really just understanding that I do actually have the ability to take control of my life.
Mhm.
In a lot of situations, we really get into this point because our mental takes over and our emotions take over,
Mhm.
where we're like, oh wow, like this must be it for me, like I'm stuck, like I can't get out of this. And sometimes what we're really afraid of is just like being somewhere where we need to start over. And that was one thing that I actually had experience with when I transferred from my previous university to Claflin. Was like, wow, like I really get to start over and stuff like that. And at first that kind of like formed some type of discomfort within me, but really I had to realize like this is like a new ground for me to walk on. It's fresh, it's a clean slate. So really just changing like the positive and looking at the silver lining of the situation. But yeah, just making sure that you're always like keeping your eye on like, what you want to build upon, especially when you're young. This is your time to be able to make mistakes, to be able to mess up. Now, not make crazy decisions. Messing up and making crazy decisions are two different things.
Yeah.
That's something I'm still, learning within myself. So I'm really talking to myself in this situation. But just like I said earlier, like doing the possible, being responsible, working your hardest, and you're going to literally see things start to like fall into place where it needs to be. So just trusting that you got it, and just knowing that as you continue to help yourself do things, try new things. Like we said earlier, you're going to start building that trust. A lot of people really look over the fact that we have to trust ourselves as well to overcome and to learn new things and to really like, be confident enough to reach higher things and more difficult things in our lives. But once you get over one thing, or you think back and you're like, wow, like I, used to live with my parents, or I used to, go from saving to now, now I'm like paying for the things that I saved for. So just, realizing that, hey, like I'm going through the steps, like I might be in the middle, but I'm not where I used to be.
Correct.
So just like, building that trust with yourself and realizing like there's so much more that is like in store for you further than what's behind you. Like never look back, you're not going that way. So that's just really like, what I try to keep my mind on. Like there's more for me to work for. This is not the end. And if I stop now, it could be my end. But I don't want to stop here. So just, always having that mindset to where like there's more to work for.
One of the other things that I want to add, you're 24 and you're experiencing things, and I'm soon to be 52. And it's a situation where I'm even in places of transition and change and having to make decisions. So, of course, it's going to look different for her as it is for me, but both of them require the same type of faith, mental fortitude, effort, calculating the risk. One of the other things that I wanted to share is don't be afraid of a lateral move. Now, I want to share this just from a career standpoint, because I've had to make a lot of lateral moves in my career. And there was times where people said, well, is it a promotion? No, it's a lateral move, but it moved me to move up. Because see, some moves don't get you forward and don't allow you to go up. But I gained experience that it looked like a lateral move, but within less than 10 months, I had a promotion. Or within less than 5 months, I jumped 2 spots. Right? So when we think of change and embracing change, some changes aren't real big. Some changes is just enough to pivot to position me for a greater blessing.
It's a repositioning.
It's a repositioning. Some things are just a pivot to reposition you for something greater. And sometimes the changes that we make may seem inconvenient. There are times that God will knock on our shoulder and be like, okay, it's time to pivot and it's time to move. And then we say, well, God, no, everything is good right now. I don't need to change. Why would I change now? I'm in the place that I want to be. It's flowing the way I like for it to flow. But understanding that God can see further than we can. And oftentimes we cause ourselves a delay through that place of being rigid. not being able to flow in some of the situations where we need to change. There was a time in my life where I knew that I was shifting spiritually, and we know what that could look like. And I was shifting in the natural and I was shifting in the spirit. And then the Lord told me, he said, I'm going to take you through a season of shifting. Sometimes we think we just shift and we change just for one big instance, but then sometimes we have that ripple effect. It's almost like when we have an earthquake, we got one big change, but then you have a thing called tremors that come after that, and that's those small ripples of change. And sometimes we have to be okay with the small ripples of change that happen in our lives, that allow us to have a bigger change, or that are from the big change that we made. We still have those small ripples. So I just wanted to share that. Don't be afraid of the lateral move. Don't be afraid of the small ripples that may come after a big change that happens. Embrace all of it, because in the evolution is a place of excitement. It's a place of wisdom. It's a place of growth. It's a place of opportunity. It's a place of collaboration. And it's also a great place of discovery, because you begin to discover new skill sets that you didn't have, a place of creativity that you may not have ever experienced or dove into before. And then it gives you an opportunity to blossom in another way. So when you think about how much you've grown from the first client you had during COVID, starting a business during COVID, to now have a business where you're doing work for Claflin University. You've started some collaborations with some of the other students at school. And now you're taking on contracts with small businesses, personal brands, as well as churches to start all of that. You have evolved and elevated your whole brand in a process of evolution. So as we're about to bring this to a close tonight, please share any questions, comments, or thoughts that you have as we have been talking about embracing change and understanding what it takes to embrace that change and overcoming the fear of new opportunities. So even for me, as you all were transitioning to adulthood, I changed my whole lifestyle of living because it gave me an opportunity to downsize. I didn't have to have a big old house anymore. I could downsize. So it brings about all those different changes, and as you embark in that. So we talked about fear, and we talked about the fortitude that we had to have in reference to that. So I just want you to take a few minutes, if you want to take a few minutes, just to kind of close us out as we're kind of bringing this to a close so that you all can enjoy the rest of your holiday. And I'm so grateful that my daughter Rebecca has been here with me, and I would definitely want to at some point get my son on here as well.
Yes,
that's going to be a great conversation. So, and I know they got stories to tell. So I just want to thank you, Rebecca, for taking your time to be here with me. And I think it's been a wonderful experience as you have evolved and you have grown into this beautiful, wise woman. And I'm so excited for what you're about to embark into. Just give some words for our listeners and for those who will be listening that they can walk away with when they think about leaning into embracing the change in their lives.
Really just making sure that you're one, if you are a person that's wanting to change, making room for it. That was recently a word that I received at church. It's that sometimes we get into this mode where we're, always asking God, like, I need transition here, or I need upgrades and restoration, whatever you're praying for. But you have to also make sure that you're doing your part with making room for it, because when it comes to the physical and the spiritual, like, you literally have to make way for the things that you want and be a steward over what you have first in order to be able to gain more. So that's really a message to myself, really. But if, like, say for instance, if I'm asking to have these new positions and stuff like that on campus, I have to show myself, like the Bible says, approved in this area first, and so people can say, like, oh yeah, she did well in this area, or God can say you did well in this area. Like, I'm going to, therefore, like, bring you more. So just making sure that if you're truly wanting more, you're wanting elevation, transformation, and everything, that you're getting yourself ready for that upgrade in your life. because with that new stuff, it's going to come new lessons, it's going to come new trials, also more for you to carry and kind of just like manage within your load. So you have to like almost like perfect where you are now and kind of just manage that effectively and be able to house more. So just doing that, and also trusting God in everything. Faith is really a big thing when it comes to faith is really a big thing when it comes to like, learning that everything is going to be okay. Sometimes we can't trust our emotions, and I know that's very hard to hear sometimes, but within our emotions still lives doubt and mistrust and past experiences, trauma, whatever it may be that's causing these negative things to arise. So, being knowledgeable of understanding like, wow, like what I'm feeling is coming from a mixture of things. It's not coming from my potential, or it's not coming from a place of confidence, or it's not coming from a place where I know God is saying you're ready for this, like go ahead and do it. So just understanding and being like fully aware and like opening your spiritual space to be able to say like, wow, like, I can't really take on this thing. I'm just really just thinking too much of it. I'm being overwhelmed at this point. So also connecting to people who are good for you, people who have either done it before, who are on the journey with you as well. It really helps that not only that you're in a place, like you said, or those lateral moves, you're getting yourself into that place or that posture, but that you're surrounding yourself by people who are good for you as well. You never want to be around naysayers. You never want to be around haters, leeches, all that stuff. Like people who are there to kind of take your joy, take your skills, discourage you, because, at the end of the day, we're humans and we're impressionable. So we have to make sure that we're connected to good sources in order to be charged up. That was good. That was good. But yeah, just making sure that we're, always, connecting ourselves with good people. Because at the end of the day, when you're down and you need those words of affirmation, especially from our creatives and stuff out there, sometimes we are very like receptive when it comes to people's critiques. Like whenever I turn in a design, I'm like, how does it look? Like, what do you think? Do you know what it means? Like, what type of brand is it? I'm always like asking these things to like people with fresh eyes and kind of getting their input on it. So if you're that type of person that likes to like connect with people and get words of affirmation, make sure that you're receiving that from good sources. Like you never want to like plug yourself in with people who you know are going to be negative, because that's going to put a damper on you. And just lastly, what we're saying in this whole thing, being adaptable, being flexible, being okay with learning a new skill, or getting to a place that might not fit within like your scope or your skill set, but at some point just know that it's going to all come together. And like I like to use the word finesse. Like at one point you're going to be able to finesse everything to maybe join into this like hobby that you want to do, or this career path that you want to do. So yes, I will definitely. I can plug my my website and stuff like that into this. So, definitely, just making sure that you're always just putting yourself in those positions or those moments where you can just take in new skills, be a student. And of course, coming from a student, I know how valuable that is. Like, just think about, like, for all my people who might be older, all the older listeners, like, think about when you were in college, and even though it was a trying time, how much you learned in that moment. Like, even in those swift past years, like, that went by so quick, like, just realize, like, wow, I came out of that with a heap of knowledge. So if you're always putting yourself in that position where you're a student, and you're always willing to collaborate and be open-minded as well, like, you're always going to be fresh and always going to have new ideas and new things to bring to the table, whether or not you're the owner or among the employees, like wherever you are, you'll always have a fresh mindset to kind of add in. So
that was powerful. That was a lot, and that was powerful. So she's going to put her link in up under all the different platforms so that you all can reach out to Rebecca. What's the name of your business again for the listeners?
So the name of my business is Redesigned by Rebecca. And you can find me on Instagram. I'm still building up Facebook, but you can find me on Instagram at RBD Rebecca. That's my Instagram handle. Redesigned by Rebecca. Or you can just type in the full thing, it'll come up. You'll see my little picture.
Oh, I love it. Y'all, this has been great. Yes. So I just want to share a few other things, that's a lot that she said, and a lot to even unpack in reference to that. She did an amazing job just sharing all of that information with you all. One of the other things, of course, the scripture that comes to mind: lean not on your own understanding, and in all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. So when you think about, and I'm gonna go ahead and let you type in your information. When you think about when we're leaning into a change, we need not to focus on what we think so much so that we don't overthink a process, especially when God has directed you to a place. And even for you to check in with God to make sure that what you are feeling, or what is it that you're discerning. And when we think about a change that's coming in our lives, we also have to think about, am I discerning my change is coming? Because oftentimes God can give you a nudge, right? Mm-hmm. He can start giving you a nudge for you to understand that a change is about to come. All changes should not blindside you. It shouldn't be a surprise. And oftentimes God is leaving us those breadcrumbs of success and letting us know, I'm about to transition you into something different. Mm-hmm. And it's good to make sure that we take that spiritual pause to discern what's happening and what's coming our direction, and we begin to prepare. As Rebecca talked about, we begin to prepare for the change. We make room for the new thing. We make room for the transformation. I know for me, when I go through a change, I physically change my environment. Mm-hmm. That's just something that has been instilled in me to do. When I begin to start changing my environment, I know that there's a big change that's on the way, because it's an unctioning that I feel. And I know that some things are transforming and that they're moving forward. So as we go into life's transitions and journeys, I pray that all the information that we shared with you all has been good, and it has been great, and it has been as good for you as it has been for us. And I thank my wonderful daughter Rebecca for being here with me tonight, as we have been talking about embracing change and overcome fear. So I pray that you will continue to evolve and elevate in the spaces that you're in a place of excellence, joy, peace, love, and happiness. Mm-hmm. We thank you all so much for being here with us tonight. Please share the link. If you think that this will be a blessing to someone, please share the link so that they can watch the replay. And we're going to do a part 2 in about embracing change in relationships. Oh, that's going to be good. We're going to talk about embracing change in relationships. Mm-hmm. So we thank you all for being here with us. Appreciate you all for sharing. And we love you all so much. And we look forward to being with you all again. Love you so much. Love you all. Thank you all for joining. And you all have a wonderful evening. Take care.